Hey folks, Tom Ream aka Willie T here, and today I'd like to talk to you about a post-crash checking of the motor shaft and then replacing it. I had the unfortunate mishap with my Bandit here. It's an airplane I've had for over 5 years. I love it to death, but I was doing a knife edge in a very windy day and I managed to nick a wingtip and the aircraft actually rolled. It rolled violently enough to snap the carbon fiber tube attaching the wings, and also it broke the prop right at the hub. After any type of prop strike, I urge you to check the motor box prior to replacing any parts. And the reason for this was, in this case, the hit was hard enough to actually bend the motor shaft. And believe it or not, these airplanes are so strong that there was zero damage to the motor box. The inside of the fuselage had quite severe damage because, as I said, the wings actually folded up. After any mishap like this, I usually come home and put the airplane on a shelf for a month or two. And then when I get in the mood, I'll take it out and see what the damage is and start the repair process. I was actually able to repair the fuselage. It's not as light as it was when it was first delivered, but it is nice and straight and all set to go. Also, after putting the prop on, I noticed that as you spin it, you can see that it's out around, and I'll do a close-up in a second. Now this can be from two things. It can either be the prop adapter's bent, or the motor shaft itself is actually bent. The quick and easy way to check it is to take a spare prop adapter that you know is good, put it on, and if you still have the wobbling effect, then chances are it's the motor shaft itself and it needs to be pressed out and replaced. I'm also going to show you a way to check it with a dial gauge. I happen to have a dial gauge in my shop, so I'm going to pull the airplane apart, the cowl, take the prop off, and whenever you take the prop adapter off, make sure you use the actual collet tool that you can purchase from PA. It's the only way to get the prop adapter off without the risk of any damage. So we'll go ahead and I'll remove the prop, the cone, and I'll take the motor out. But prior to that, I'll show you how I check it on a dial gauge. As you can see by rotating the prop, you can see that the nose cone is visibly wobbling. Again, this is due, in this case, to a bent motor shaft. As I said before, if you don't have access to a dial gauge, the easiest way to check it is to replace the prop adapter with a known good prop adapter. And again, checking the wobble. If you still have the wobble, then chances are you've bent the motor shaft. Okay, here we have the collet removing tool. We just place it over this like so. One or two quick turns and it comes right off. And there you have it. It's as easy as that, and there's absolutely no risk of any damage. Okay, so now I've hooked it up with my dial gauge. I've hooked the battery up, and I'm just going to trim it up until the shaft starts to rotate. And you can see how much out around it is. It's probably 5-10 thousandths out around, which is enough to make everything wobble. So I'm going to shut it down, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the motor out and replace the motor shaft. Okay, so now the motor is out, and the next step is to remove the two grub screws that secure the motor shaft inside the motor itself. I can't overstress that you really need to have a quality 1.5 millimeter hex wrench. If you use a lesser quality, you run the risk of stripping these screws out, and then you have to drill them out, and you can just avoid the whole mess by having a quality tool and using quality tools. So I'm going to insert the wrench into the grub screw. We're going to take that out. Sometimes they can be a little persnickety to get out. and set them down. For the purpose of this video, I'm just using this towel here. That one's a little more stubborn. There, we got it out. And we're going to go ahead and remove it. And just go ahead and keep everything together where you're not going to lose it. So what I've done here is I have a socket that's deep enough to allow the shaft to be pushed through. I have a stainless steel bolt put into the jaws or into the chuck, and I'm just going to press this out in one smooth maneuver just like that. You can also do the same procedure using the drill press, but you can see now I have the shaft out. The motor will just come apart. I can put the new shaft in using the vise, and we'll be good to go. So hang on just a second and I'll show you how to put a new shaft back in. Okay, I now have my new motor shaft, which I'm cleaning off any machining residue, any Cosmoline, whatever they might use to keep it from rusting or corroding. So we'll get that all cleaned off. You can use acetone, alcohol, whatever it is you wish. And you'll see that there's a flat spot on the new shaft, just like there was on the old one. What we're going to do is align it with one of the grub screws holes. So I'm putting that grub screw hole up, and I'm going to insert the shaft so that it lines up. Don't know if you can see that real well. Then we're going to open our vise, and then just press it in. Try to keep everything nice and straight. We're going to press it right in until it's flush with the back side. Let's check and see that. Yeah, got a little ways to go yet. And just a little bit more. I could actually see it, the flat spot, come under the grub screw. So we're just going to give it just a little more. And there, you can see that she's flush with the back there. I'm all set to put my grub screws in. Remember, only use Loctite on the first 3 threads when you reinstall the grub screws, and only use blue Loctite. So again, we have our blue Loctite, not red. We're going to put a little drop on the first 3 threads, only. If you get it a little bit too far, you could just take your finger and wipe it down, or take a paper towel. And then we're going to go ahead, reinstall the grub screw. Again, using a quality tool. And we're going to do the same with the other. Reassemble everything, reinstall it, and we should be good to go. Okay, so now we've got it hooked up. We've got the motor reinstalled, and we're going to do the same test with the dial gauge. I'm going to go ahead and trim it up until it starts to turn. And you can notice the difference now. It's turning. The shaft is absolutely perfect. There's no fluctuation of the dial indicator. And so the only thing left to do is put it all back together, put the cowling on, the prop, and all that stuff, and go out and get her flying again. Okay, everything's back together, and I'm going to just go ahead and hand turn the prop, and you can see that there's 0 deviation in the nose cone. So everything is set and ready to go. Again, this is Tom Ream, aka Willie T, just signing off. I want to tell you that I'm happy to have my beloved Bandit. If you go online at precisionaerobatics.com, you can see a full tutorial on how to replace the shaft using the steps that I just showed you. And hope you all have a blessed day and happy flying.